I mean, especially as a contractor, you've walked into different organisations, potentially who may be in a bit of trouble. So you have to go in there and obviously help them and consult them. So managing upwards, that communication style, how very
Yeah,
different is that compared to leading a team?
yeah. I think when you manage upwards, and I'm the first one to say that when it comes to senior management, I guess I'm less tolerant as a QP or a contractor than I perhaps should be. Um, I've tried to evaluate at times why that would be. Um, I tend to I've had to try and work on different ways in which to approach certain scenarios, because my default setting is to listen, understand, and then if I think the person is not genuine or doesn't have the best interest at heart, then I tend to be they tend to know that fairly quickly, and that's something that I need to think about. The the thing is though is that one of the first jobs is to get them to understand why it's important, and that again has been on LinkedIn recently quite a bit, and I think that's a very important and valuable discussion to get into. Um, Most senior managers, they're very senior people. They don't want detail, and as scientists, that's a challenge for us because we like detail. We like to give detail. So if you're a QP and you're communicating with senior management, you have to cut it down. You have to get the salient points together, and you have to communicate in bite-sized chunks that is easy to understand. They don't have time. They're not just managing quality. They're managing a vast organisation in some cases, and what they need is a way forward, not another problem erected for them to think through. And I guess that's the thing is that you should go with the solution, not the problem, um, and that makes gives the senior management a little bit of an easier time when it comes to deciding what to do. I guess the other side of dealing with senior management is they are the ones that make the decisions, and in very rare occasions, you know that they're going to make the decision that's not good for the organisation. And that's when you have to be assertive, and you have to be very clear about what needs to be done. And to any young people out there who are wanting to be a QP, this is one of the hard parts of being a QP. Sometimes you have to deliver bad news or bad news from a commercial perspective, and you have to learn different ways in which to do that, but at the same time be assertive to make sure that the point gets across properly, and be prepared for the intense discussion that goes with it. It's part of the job in some
Yeah,
circumstances. So
yeah,
that's important.
yeah. I suppose that brings you back to the point where you mentioned earlier in terms of no one really teaches you how to communicate when you're going through the training to become a QP. However, it's a huge part of that job.
Yeah, it's something that I've considered. I've not really had the time to look at yet. Hopefully, at some stage, I will. But communication should be part of, I think, the curriculum, um, and managing in those scenarios. As I said very early in the conversation, you suddenly go from being Joe Bloggs who is sauntering along doing your job to somebody who's in the spotlight, and people look straight to you to make decisions, proper decisions, the right decision, and they expect you to know the answers to everything. Don't be tempted to try and know the answer to everything.
So I suppose in retrospect, then, what guidance would you offer to a younger Kev starting out his journey in quality assurance, and in particular, I suppose, going for the QP training?
Wow, crikey. I think that's a good question. What would you say to yourself? Well, I think I've covered most of it already in the discussion. Don't pretend you know
Yeah,
the answer. It's okay to not know what the answer is. Um, and I guess that's the same in management as well. You'll feel in the spotlight. You'll feel like everybody's watching you. You'll feel like everybody's judging you. All of these things. Most of it will be in your head. Most of it will be in your head and not actually be the reality. So you need to talk to people. You need to get out there and do the communication. You of course have got to put the hard yards in. You've got to learn. There is a commitment for new people to come through, and it's a bigger commitment than I went through because the legislation is much bigger. The complexity is there, and the changes that are going on are quite staggering at times. Um, I think, as far as possible, with procedures and processes, people have to simplify and that comes from talking to the people that you're working with. I would say, you know, be less important, be more humble when it comes to learning stuff and being with people. Um, I probably would have said to myself, you need to study harder at university instead of having a great time. It was the 80s, of course, and the music was fabulous. Um, and there were lots of other distractions in those days, but that would be something that you could probably say to yourself. You get something out of it when you put something into it. And over the past, I don't know, 15 years or so, when I've done various lecturing and on various subjects with students and what have you, I'm always asked what do I need to do to be a QP, and it's hard work. That's what you need. You need hard work, dedication, and um, the thing that you shouldn't go into it for, although the rewards can be good, is not just for the money, because it's not just for the money, it's for the patient
yeah,
at the end of the day. And you need to keep that in mind.
yeah,
And I
absolutely.
suppose the last bit of information I'd give my former self is yeah, do it. Do it because it's been fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. I can look back on my career. Yes, there's been ups and downs, and there are people that I've come across who I haven't got on with. But
Yeah,
overall, I'm really satisfied and pleased and proud of where I've got to. And I suppose it's worth saying as well that how I feel is built on by the knowledge and care of others to get me to where I am now.
brilliant, Kev. Yeah, no, it sounds like the hard work has paid off for yourself, and it's been extremely rewarding over the years. And for my
Yeah, it
final
feels like
question,
it.
sorry there. So
Right,
my
mate.
final question, Kev, is you touched upon it a few times, is in terms of, I suppose, the fast changing legislations, regulations within the industry, and there's a lot to keep on top of. So how do you see the role of a QP evolving in the coming years?
I think to start with, the QP as it stands at the moment. So if you look at the study guide at the moment for a QP, it's broad. It has to be. Once you've passed the Viva, you're expected to slot into any scenario to be able to function as a QP. But things are changing. The manufacturing base in this country has decreased. So if QPs want to get experience in different parts of manufacturing, and it's an absolute must, you must get that, then people are going to have to work harder to get through that, and to get enough experience to be able to manage in those situations. Um, Obviously, medicines are changing. We're moving to preventative medicines, and the biologics and all of the uh, innovations that are coming through, which require different knowledge and disciplines. Um, colleague of mine was at the very forefront of that some years ago, is now massively in demand because there aren't so many people around with her knowledge. And I think the scientific disciplines that people will need will probably change somewhat too. QPs may become more specialised. Currently a QP is expected to be able to move from one place to another to be able to deal with different scenarios. That might change, and there may be a need to have specific QP types for certain things. Obviously, you talked about legislation. The Orange Guide is a recipe for back pain problems if you carry it around. These days, it's a much bigger tome than it ever used to be. I think also the good thing from a QP's perspective is the inspectorate are starting to look to the most senior management in an organisation, looking at the quality culture and how developed the quality culture is, and I think that's long overdue. The QP is expected to be all things to all people, but the one thing that it's very difficult to do from the QP's role is completely influence the company in what needs to be done from a quality perspective. It has to come from the people at the top. I think the thing about being more specialised, I don't think that will come anytime soon. One of the difficulties that we face, of course, is that the QP getting new QPs into the industry is still a challenge. The pass rate currently is around 50% in Viva. I may make a couple of points about that's worth, if people are going through that process, it will help. I think people have to remember that, yes, you have to know the legislation, and that's a challenge, as I mentioned earlier. Yes, you have to know about each different discipline within the study guide, but the biggest one of all is that the fact that you may know all of that stuff, you've still got to be able to coherently present it when you're given a scenario to deal with. It's no good if you're the most knowledgeable person in the world, but then cannot bring that knowledge to bear to manage and control a situation which may be serious for the patient. So from the perspective of all of those three things, you have to remember that if you have all the knowledge in the world and you know all the legislation in the world, it will not work if you cannot pull it together into a coherent strategy to manage a scenario and a situation. If you're unable to do all of those three things, or one of those three things, it is difficult for you to go through the Viva process. And of course, that's what you'll need to do in real life. So that going through those three steps is very important and key to getting success.